Haunted secrets exposed, 7 men discovered sinister truths that should remain unexplained. Tanya's heart raced as she fumbled through the dim light of her husband's shed, memories of his absence heavy in the air like a suffocating fog. The peeling paint hung like the ghosts of their lost happiness, and the shadows twisted, mocking her. There it was, a cracked leather diary, its spine cracked like the secrets it held. Who would have thought this forgotten relic would lead to horrors lurking beneath their crumbling suburb? What had happened to those neighbors? What truths should remain buried? As she flipped through the pages, the words seemed to breathe life into the dismal silence. Tales of sinister rituals danced before her eyes, men gathered at midnight, whispering of whispers no one should hear. Each entry twisted her stomach further, pounding panic into her veins. Who were these men? What dark things were they hiding? A sudden noise made her freeze, a rustling outside, a low whisper that sent icy fingers racing up her spine. Trembling, Tanya squinted through the window, desperate to catch a glimpse of the source. Nothing. Mom. Jeremy's small voice broke through the unease, his voice trembling with remnants of a nightmare. I saw them again in the window. Her breath hitched in her throat, the shadows seemed to loom closer, eager to seep through the cracks of their home. What did you see? She whispered, bracing herself for the answer. Figures so tall and dark they were just watching. The hairs on her neck prickled, a warning echoing in her mind. Was this fear stemming from her own nightmares or from something real? Across the street, shadows shifted, strange gatherings that she could feel, the weight of their presence palpable. It wasn't just tonight, strange things had been happening for weeks. The neighbors had changed, their eyes now held secrets she no longer understood. The foreboding atmosphere thickened like a storm. There were whispers, flitting up and down the block. Dread wrapped around her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days morphed into nights where sleep eluded her, replaced by the creeping shadows and scratching noises. On one particularly cold eve, Tanya returned home to find the air charged with a strange tension, a silent promise of something that had gone horribly wrong. The kitchen light flickered, throbbed, sent panic racing through her body. Her eyes darted toward the staircase, where an audible creak echoed, begging her to investigate. Shadows slithered along the walls, they were alive, watching and waiting. That a figure lurked in her peripheral vision, a man, standing outside, deep in the collective malignance that permeated the neighborhood. Tanya's heart hammered against her chest as she spotted him. His expression was unreadable, yet his eyes bore the weight of centuries-old secrets. Every muscle tensed, urging her to flee, to lock the doors, to shield her boys from the darkness closing in. But she couldn't run. Not when the survival of her family hung in the balance. That in a world of whispered threats and suffocating uncertainty, she had to confront the darkness head-on. Would she find answers or succumb to the terror? Electric anticipation pulsed through the air, binding her to an awful truth waiting to be unearthed. Just as she resolved to uncover what lay hidden, the lights flickered once more, plunging her into a suffocating darkness. A chilling voice echoed from the shadows. You should never have come here. Fear flooded her veins. What horror awaited her as she stood on the precipice of terrifying revelation? The darkness felt tangible, wrapping around Tanya like a shroud. Panic clawed at her throat, choking her as she turned slowly, every instinct urging her to flee. But there was nowhere to go. The enemy wasn't just outside, it was within the very walls of her home. Mom. Jeremy's voice was a mere whisper, trembling and echoing in the eerie quiet. The sound of his small feet padding down the hallway crawled over her skin like 1,000 spiders. I'm scared. Tanya wanted to turn to him, to reassure him, but she couldn't shake the pinprick of dread pulsing at the back of her mind. The shadows contorted, and her gaze snapped back toward the source of the voice. "Show yourself!" she shouted, her voice echoing off the walls, but it felt weak and swallowed whole by the night. "Do you really wish to know?" The voice pulled as if taunting. It brushed against her ears like a slithering serpent, chilling her further. The house had taken on a sinister breath, alive in a way that suffocated her. Just then, a flicker of light appeared at the edge of her vision, pushing back the dark for a mere moment. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, then it went out. "Jeremy!" She whirled around, her eyes wide with fear. "Stay close to me." He emerged from the shadows, his small body trembling, eyes wide and lost in the dark. She reached out, grabbing his hand, the warmth grounding her momentarily. The two of them stood at the foot of the stairs, staring into the inky blackness above. "Mom," there Jeremy began, but his voice collapsed into a silence that hung like a noose. Instead, tears streamed down his cheeks as he squeezed her hand tighter. Beneath the weight of the palpable dread, a choice loomed over Tanya. She could bolt for the front door, escape into the night, risk whatever was lurking out there, or climb the stairs, dive headfirst into the unknown that awaited above. "I have to find out," she whispered, the determination thinly veiled by fear. She stepped toward the staircase reluctantly, Jeremy's small hand gripping hers like a vice. With each thumping footfall echoed back, as if the walls were mocking them, taunting their bravado. With every step, darkness wrapped tighter around them. At the top of the stairs, something shifted. One room down the hall trembled slightly, the door slightly open, beckoning like a gaping mouth ready to swallow them whole. "That's where they meet," Jeremy breathed, pointing. His voice was barely audible, soaked instead in a thick dread. A shiver rushed through her as thoughts swirled. Was this where those men stood, plotting unholy horrors? Was her husband part of it? Tanya didn't want to know, but couldn't ignore the lure of the truth that pulsed like a heartbeat in her chest. Tanya steeled herself and inched toward the door. It swung open with a low creak as if inviting them inside. The air was absurdly still, almost suffocating. Inside the dim room, dark figures shifted, whispering words that elongated in the air, coiling around her mind in a vice grip. "I found you," a voice hissed, slithering through the crevice between fear and realization. It was the man from outside. He was suddenly right in front of her, his eyes glinting with an ancient malice. "Run!" she shouted, yanking Jeremy toward the stairs. But as she turned, the hallway began to ripple and twist, the stairs expanding and contracting like a living entity, trapping them in a spiral of horror. What had she awakened? Was there a way out? The terrified question filled her mind as the door slammed shut behind them. And just like that, the whispers crescendoed, weaving a web of shadow around their vision. What they had stumbled upon was no longer a secret. The truth had claws, and it was coming for them. With nowhere to run, Tanya's gaze darted around the oppressive darkness. She gripped Jeremy's hand tighter, the pulse of danger surrounding them. "We have to get out now." But the walls themselves seemed to close in, the flickering shadows whispering, taunting her as dread sunk deeper than ever before. Was this just the beginning of something worse? The darkness hummed with energy, a maddening chorus of whispers clinging to Tanya's ears. Every shadow threatened to take shape, to reveal what had been hidden from her. Mom. Jeremy's voice was barely a quiver now, lost beneath the weight of the looming terror. She turned to him, forcing herself to breathe, to keep anything anchored in reality. But her heart raced, vibrating faster as the inky shadow seemed to stretch toward them, hungry and alive. "Stay close," she snapped, pulling him against her leg. Her instincts screamed at her to push forward, to find an escape. But the doorway loomed like an abyss, swallowing all light. Just beyond the door, the whispers grew louder, morphing into something almost coherent. "Join us, it's your destiny." One figure, a nightmare silhouette, broke free from the mass. Its eyes flickered, reflecting an otherworldly glow that chilled Tanya to her core. "Jeremy, run!" she shouted again, but the boy was frozen, staring at the figure as if it held the secrets of the universe within its gaze. "Mom, I hear them," he whispered. They're calling us. The echoes of his voice danced with the shadows, teasing at the edges of her sanity. Tanya turned and sprinted back toward the stairs, the ground beneath her feet wobbling as if the house itself were alive, reacting to their fear. Each step felt like a rebellion against the oppressive force that threatened to claim them. As they dashed down the hall, the air thickened, becoming like syrup, heavy and dragging. The walls creaked and groaned, whispering their secrets, daring her to understand. Something ancient resided within this place, feeding off their confusion and dread. "Mom! Look!" Jeremy shouted, pointing towards an old photo hung crookedly on the wall. It depicted a family, their family smiling, blissful, devoid of the darkness that now permeated everything. But something was wrong. In the corner of the frame, an ominous figure lurked, just barely visible. It looked like the same shadow that haunted them now. A jolt of realization hit Tanya like ice water. "It can't be," she muttered. Distracted, she lost her footing, nearly collapsing. Desperation clawed at her throat as panic pitched her voice higher. "We have to keep moving." She yanked Jeremy toward the stairs again, but behind them, the shadows swelled, pulling closer, feeling almost sentient. The shape of malevolence ebbed and flowed, whispering words that sank into her bones. "You belong with us, surrender no." Tanya screamed. "Shut up." Panic erupted into rage as she lunged for the door, willing it to open, but it held fast, refusing to yield. "Mom! It's too late!" Jeremy cried, his grip slackening. She whirled around, and in that instant darkness, the house fell silent. An oppressive weight replaced the chaos. Tanya's breath caught in her throat. Was this the end? Outside, the front door swung open, revealing blinding light spilling into the darkness, a promise of refuge. But it came accompanied by the shrill, echoing laughter of the shadows, a sound so piercing it threatened to unravel her mind. "Mom, we have to go." Jeremy's small voice cracked through the silence, pulling her back from the brink. "Then let us do it," she yelled, determination fueled by a crashing wave of fear. She dashed toward the light, heart racing, blood pounding in her ears. But as she reached for the door, a foul stench filled her nostrils, thick like rot. The laughter morphed, burrowing into her brain, mocking her escape. And suddenly, the light flickered, faltering as shadows wrapped around her like tendrils of smoke, pulling her back. "Mom," Jeremy whispered, his voice barely a breath. She froze. Turning slowly, she faced the swirling darkness. In the depths, a figure stepped forward, eyes burning with unnatural fire. "Did you really think you could leave?" It taunted, voice cold and sweeping like a winter breeze. With a scream caught in her throat, Tanya realized this was just the beginning. What had she stumbled into? The shadows closed in, and as her vision waned, she felt a chilling clarity. They weren't just trapped in the house, they were part of something far greater, far more sinister. Were they being hunted, or were they the hunted? Just as everything began to fade, the figure's voice pierced through again. "Join us, the torment has only begun." Tanya's world distorted. The figure advanced, its gaze piercing like daggers. Fear lanced through her as she felt Jeremy's hand slip from hers. "No!" She screamed, reaching for him, but the shadows greedily consumed the space between them. "Mom!" Jeremy cried, his voice a fragile thread lost in the storm of darkness. The air crackled as the entity drew closer, the smell of decay wafting in waves. Each step it took felt like another shackle binding Tanya to this unknown nightmare. Her thoughts raced. There had to be something, some way out of this. Jeremy. She fought against the pull of the shadows, the weight of despair wrapping around her throat like a noose. She surged forward, heart hammering, every instinct pushing her to grasp her son again. The light at the doorway still glimmered, a stark contrast to the encroaching dark, but it felt miles away, unreachable. Then she heard it again, the whispers. "Join us, the family you once were, the happiness you forgot." Tanya shook her head, pushing back against the tide of memories washing over her. Images flickered, moments of joy, laughter, but intertwined with something sinister. The photo. The figure in the corner. It wasn't just a shadow. It was a part of their past, twisted and warped into something malevolent. With a surge of determination, Tanya shouted, "You're not taking my son." The words felt like a spark igniting the dimness, fueled by a love so fierce it burned bright against the black abyss. Such fire, such defiance. The figure chuckled, a sound that reverberated through the walls, echoing like thunder. "But it will get you nowhere." She could see Jeremy now, caught in an ethereal glow, his eyes wide with terror. "Mom! Help me!" He reached out, but the gap widened again as the shadows pushed him further away. "Don't look at it, Jeremy." She forced her gaze back to the entity, unable to surrender to its dark promises. "You're stronger than this." In that moment, she realized the whispers were changing. They were no longer trying to seduce. They were angry. "You belong to us. You cannot escape." Tanya felt the ground rumble beneath her feet, a deep resonant growl that vibrated through the air. The entire house seemed to shift, the walls pulsing as if alive. It was a warning. A threat. "Stop fighting." The figure hissed, grasping at Tanya with shadowy fingers that swirled like smoke. She stumbled as a surge of power knocked her off balance. But through the chaos, she clung to the image of her son, his small frame lost amongst the shadows but not broken. The love she had for him filled her, pushing back against the darkness. "Jeremy!" she roared, planting her feet firm. "I choose you." In that split second, she plunged forward, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The air around them vibrated with energy. The figure screeched, the sound splitting her head, but she could see the path, the flickering light beckoning closer. Tanya barreled through the shadows, feeling the pull of both worlds as she fought to reclaim her son. She reached out just as blackened hands grasped at her, and in a desperate bid, she seized Jeremy. They tumbled into the harsh light together, the shadows shrieking, retreating as if burned. The blinding luminescence enveloped them, and for a moment, serenity replaced chaos. But even in that brief escape, whispers clawed at her mind, echoing their promise. "We will return, you cannot escape what you are." The silence that followed was deafening. Had they truly escaped, or were they simply waiting for the next wave of terror? Outside, the world looked eerily normal, but dread settled heavily in her gut. This was just a temporary respite. "Mom, what was that?" Jeremy stammered, still holding on to her tightly. The realization hit her like a slap. "I don't know, but they'll be coming for us again." Her heart thudded in her chest. "We need to find answers. We need to understand what we're up against." As they stood there, the chilling sound of laughter echoed from the house, a haunting reminder that their battle was far from over. What truths lay concealed within the shadows? What horrors awaited? Tanya tightened her grip on Jeremy's hand, ready to face whatever might come next. But in the back of her mind, a question loomed: would the past finally reveal its secrets, or would it consume them both? The laughter faded, but its chilling residue lingered, crawling under Tanya's skin. She focused on Jeremy's wide eyes, so filled with fear. He needed her now more than ever, but the dark specter loomed in the corner of her mind like a malignant shadow, waiting for an opening. "Let us get away from here," she urged, her voice trembling slightly as she pulled him along the empty street. They stumbled over cracked pavement, heartbeats drumming in their chests. Hers was a steady rhythm of maternal resolve, while Jeremy's fluttered like a trapped bird. The house that had once felt like home now seemed like a malignant entity, and its very presence pulsated with sinister life. Each step away brought momentary relief, but the shadows danced at the edges of her vision. "Mom!" Jeremy's voice broke her immersion in her thoughts. "What do we do now?" Tanya glanced back, expecting to see the looming figure emerge from the house, but the air was shockingly still. We need to figure out what that thing was." It had something to do with the family pictures. Suddenly, a ripping sound sliced through the air behind them. Tanya turned to see a small, tattered piece of paper fluttering through the wind, as if beckoning them back. A chill ran down her spine when she recognized it. It was one of the photos from their living room. The image had been altered, the figure lurking in the corner more distinct now, its eyes darker, its smile more menacing. "No, no, no," she whispered, fear constricting her throat. She turned back to Jeremy. "We can't go back there. We have to keep moving." But the pull of the past latched onto her like a parasite, invading her thoughts as flashes of memories intruded. Joyful family gatherings, confirming the smiling faces of a bygone era that felt tainted now. "Something is wrong, Mom," Jeremy said, voice trembling. "I feel it." The ground trembled beneath them again, a low rumble that felt like an echo from within the earth. Tanya barely had time to react as the world around them warped. The pavement ahead cracked, intertwining roots snaking upward like gnarled fingers reaching for them. "No!" Tanya shouted, grabbing Jeremy's arm. "We have to run." They sprinted through the chaos, dodging unfamiliar shadows that danced closer, their shapes elongating as if hungry for their fear. Cold wind whipped around them, and the laughter followed, taunting and echoing in the depths of her mind. What was it that haunted them? What sinister secrets lay buried within their past? "Mom! Look out!" Jeremy screamed, pointing to where a dark figure brewed at the edge of the fog. Tanya's heart stopped. There it was again, the very entity that had tormented her. It stood against the light of the street lamp, its eyes glowing with malice, mouth twisted in a sinister grin. It beckoned her closer with an outstretched hand. "Join us, join your family," it echoed, voice dripping with an unnatural sweetness. "No!" Tanya shouted, pressing her shoulder against Jeremy, backing away. But with each step, the shadows threatened to swallow them whole. The laughter crescendoed to a cacophony around her, intermixed with whispers that clawed at her sanity. They wanted her to remember, to embrace the horror buried within. "Mom! We have to get out of here!" Jeremy yelled, pulling her toward the only refuge he could see, a flickering light from a nearby gas station. "Okay," she responded, forcing her limbs to obey, dragging both of them through disorienting darkness. Each step felt like running on ice, their feet slipping as if the ground itself held them down. Just as they pushed through the gas station's door, an explosion of echoes detonated behind them, a monstrous roar that shattered the dark night. The fluorescent lights buzzed as a deep, malevolent energy pulsed in the air, swirling through the dimly lit shop. What did we just unleash? Tanya thought, dread clawing at her throat. The laughter surged again, louder, more aggressive. They could never escape, could never unearth what lay in their family's past, and the toll it demanded. "Mom," Jeremy's voice broke through the chaos, "what do we do now?" Outside, the world felt alive with unseen eyes watching them, waiting. As stones rattled in their wake, Tanya sensed that the answers, horrifying and heavy, were woven into the fabric of her family's story. They were entwined in the echoes that permeated the night. "Whatever it is, we need to find it before it finds us," she whispered. But deep down, she knew. The truth could be worse than the darkness itself. What price would they pay to uncover the past? And were they truly ready for the revelation that awaited? The gas station's fluorescent lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows that seemed to sway and pulse as if alive. Tanya pushed through the door, dragging Jeremy in behind her. The air inside was stale and filled with the faint scent of burnt coffee and grease, a stark contrast to the terror gripping her heart. The laughter outside faded but left a haunting echo lingering in the corners of her mind. "Mom! Look!" Jeremy pointed toward the back of the store. At first, she thought he was pointing to a magazine or a snack aisle, but her gaze caught something out of place, a darkened corner behind a row of shelves, where the shadows seemed to coil and twist like snakes. "Tanya, we need to go," whispered Jeremy, his voice choked with fear. But something compelled her to stay, a mixture of dread and curiosity swirling within her. "I just want to see," she breathed, moving toward the shadows, each step feeling heavier than the last. "No." Jeremy tugged at her shirt, his small hands trembling. "Please, don't go. Ignoring his pleas, Tanya stepped closer to the ominous darkness. The shadows felt thick, almost viscous, wrapping around her feet as she approached. Just as she was about to reach the edge, a sudden burst of energy shot through her, sending her stumbling backward. She landed against the cold floor, heart racing. The laughter roared back, louder and more menacing. "You can't hide, Tanya. It's part of you, part of your family." With every resonant word, the walls seemed to vibrate, the shelves rattled. Tanya fought the urge to scream, pushing herself back to her feet. "I need to find out what is going on," she gasped. "But what if it hurts us?" Jeremy cried, tears pooling in his eyes. Her heart ached for him, but she felt the pull, a relentless urge to confront whatever had been unleashed. A chill swept through the gas station, ruffling her hair, sending a shiver down her spine. Suddenly, the lights overhead flickered violently, and the shadows in the corner erupted, morphing into a towering figure. Its eyes burned with a sickly glow, and the grin stretched across its face, contorted into something grotesque. The features swirled together like a storm beneath a dark sky, lost and searching. "Join us," the figure echoed, its voice an inky whisper that dripped with shadows. "It's what you wanted, Tanya. All your family, together again." "No." She lunged toward Jeremy, yanking him close, the heat of her fury igniting within, an instinct to protect overpowering the dreadful fascination. But as she turned, she noticed something unsettling. On the nearby wall, a series of family photos lay framed, each one eerily familiar yet distorted. Their faces had been scratched out, silhouettes of their figures leaving only a terrifying emptiness. "Mom!" Jeremy screamed, pointing at the photos as the figure began to retreat into the dark. "Look at them. They're all heavy with grief," Tanya interjected, her voice trembling. They felt the weight of those lost souls, a sinister purpose pulling at the strings of their existence. "We need to get out." In that moment, the gas station door slammed shut as if held by invisible hands. The chatter of the outside world had vanished, but the laughter surged again, guttural and hungry. The forgotten echo of her family's happiness transformed into something twisted, demanding to be acknowledged. "Mom, what do we do?" Jeremy trembled against her side, eyes darting around for an escape. "Look for the back door," Tanya shouted, her heart racing, the pounding of her pulse drowning out the laughter that filled the space. "We have to find a way." Before she could finish, the floor lurched beneath them, sending Jeremy crashing into a shelf, cans rattling and spilling onto the ground. Tanya rushed to him, panic rising like bile in her throat. Then she saw it, a door marked exit, its handle glinting in the flickering light. "Come on, Jeremy." She pulled him up, adrenaline pushing through her as they sprinted toward the doorway. But just as they reached out for the handle, a rippling shadow surged forward, blocking their escape. "You cannot run from what? You are from what you've unleashed." With a deep breath, Tanya held Jeremy tight. The laughter faded slightly, only to be replaced by the soft, beckoning whispers of a family wanting to return. "Mom." Jeremy's voice was barely a whisper, the weight of fear clinging to every syllable. Could she find a way to save her son before the darkness consumed them both? The door loomed in front of them, but the figure stepped closer, its eyes burning like coals. "Stay with us," it purred, holding out a twisted hand, "just trust me." What secrets hid behind that corrupted smile? Would Tanya surrender to the past? Or could she defy the darkness that threatened to tear them apart? The figure loomed over them, its presence a suffocating blanket of dread. Tanya's instincts screamed to flee, but every part of her felt anchored to the spot. The promise of familiarity twisted into a noose, tightening around her throat, making it hard to breathe. "Jeremy," she whispered, her voice trembling. She could feel the warmth of his small body next to her, a flicker of hope amongst the encroaching shadows. "We need a plan." The dark entity's laughter echoed again, slithering through her like ice. "Planning won't save you, Tanya. What's buried will rise. What's lost will always want to come home." The shadows behind it pulsed, demanding to be acknowledged. "Just let go." Your family needs you. Embrace them no. She yelled, shaking her head violently, as if that alone could shatter the nightmare. She gripped Jeremy tighter, determined to protect him from whatever this thing wanted. She glanced toward the exit door, the only way out, yet it felt miles away. Mom, I can't, Jeremy sobbed, a knot of fear twisted deep in his belly. Please, let us go. Before she could answer, the figure took a step closer, and the tainted air wrapped around them both, tightening like a vice. You don't understand, child. This is just a waiting room waiting for the final reunion. A chill coursed through Tanya. Memories surged, her family's laughter, their smiles before everything went dark and twisted. Shadows flickered in her mind, memories of the good times but overshadowed by the oppressive weight of loss. Hands off. Suddenly, the bright spark of defiance surged through her as she pressed her foot forward, channeling all her resolve. You think you can control us? You think we'll just give in? The figure paused, confusion rippling through its countenance. You can't resist what's inside you, it hissed, its voice a blend of silk and ice. Stay away from my son. Tanya stepped back, pushing Jeremy behind her. Fear morphed into rage, an instinct carved into her bones. She made a silent promise to protect him no matter the cost. Then faced the truth. The laughter morphed into wails, pulling her into a whirlwind of sorrow, fragments of memories clawing at her chest. Jeremy squeezed her hand tighter, the panic radiating from him igniting her determination. Look at the photos, Mom. He shouted again. They're screaming to us. Their eyes fell upon the wall adorned with the grotesque family portraits, faces twisted, eyes hollow, mouths gaping wide as if caught in eternal screams. Each frame pulled at Tanya, each figure a reminder of what they'd lost, the essence of their lives drained, replaced by despair. No. She screamed, balloons of despair popping all around her, releasing the pent-up terror. I refuse to become like them. Then you will suffer. The figure lunged, darkness exploding towards them like a tidal wave. Tanya closed her eyes, shielding Jeremy behind her, heart racing. In that split second, memories of laughter and warmth flowed back, their family camping under the stars, Jeremy giggling as he rode his first bike. A sudden thought struck her, cutting through the darkness. She had a choice. They both did. Now. She yelled, pushing off the ground and stumbling sideways. Jeremy mirrored her movement, and together they rushed toward the exit. As their hands reached for the door, the darkness shattered like glass around them with a deafening shriek, but terror surged again, the laughter intensifying, catching at their heels. You can't escape. You can't. The door swung open, a harsh beam of light splitting through the shadows. Tanya yanked Jeremy through with all her might, praying. They tumbled to the ground just outside, breathless and gasping, the weight of the gas station's horror still clinging to them. What just happened? Jeremy panted, wide-eyed and trembling. I don't know, Tanya whispered, glancing back at the closed door, shadows twisting beyond the glass. But something is still out there. As she looked back, the figure stood in the doorway, void and malice etched in every line. You think you've won? It's just beginning. With that, it vanished, leaving an unsettling sense of dread that lingered like smoke in the air. What trickery awaited them in the light? Was it truly over, or had they merely opened a new door to even darker horrors? Mom, Jeremy's voice trembled again. What if it follows us? We'll figure it out, she replied, uncertainty wrapping around her like a shroud. But one thing was clear, the fight wasn't over. If anything, it had just begun. What awaited them next? And how far would they have to go to uncover the truth? The air outside the gas station felt different, fresher, yet tinged with an impending dread. Tanya pulled herself upright, trying to gather her thoughts, but the shadows of inside still clung to her skin. Jeremy clung to her leg, his wide eyes darting around, every sound a potential threat. Let us move, Tanya urged, her voice sharp, brushing away lingering thoughts of the figure. They had escaped, but in her gut, a gnawing unease told her that their real peril lay ahead. As they hurried down the cracked pavement, the night was darker, the moon hidden behind clouds, suffocating their path in blackness. With each step, they felt the weight of unwanted whispers, shadows darting just out of view. The world felt layered with secrets, each corner pointed them toward an unknown terror. "Look, over there!" Jeremy squeaked, his finger trembling as he pointed ahead. A dilapidated building loomed in the distance, its windows shattered, jagged edges gleaming like the teeth of a hungry beast. "Stay close," Tanya whispered, heart hammering in her chest. She felt an unreasonable pull toward the building, a sickening curiosity that forced her feet to move. A wind whistled through the broken glass, filling the air with a chill. As they reached the door, Tanya hesitated, a gut instinct screaming at her to turn back. "Maybe we should find help," she murmured, eyes scanning the perimeter. But Jeremy tugged at her hand. "No. We can't go back," he insisted, his voice shaky yet resolute. The determination in his eyes reminded her of his father, and for a moment, the memories threatened to drown her. Okay. Tanya gritted her teeth and pushed the door open. It creaked ominously, echoing their arrival. The darkness yawned at them, swallowing their light. Inside, the atmosphere thickened, heavy with dust and sorrow. They stepped cautiously, every sound amplified in the eerie silence. It felt like walking through a tomb, cold, forgotten, and breathing secrets that should stay buried. As they ventured deeper, a bank of dusty photographs caught Tanya's attention. They hung haphazardly on the walls, faces staring back at them, hollow smiles and wide eyes that felt too alive, too aware. "What are these doing here?" she asked, brushing a finger over the glass. The moment she did, a cold rush of frigid air swept past her, setting her hair on end. "Mom, they don't look right," Jeremy whimpered, pressing against her. She glanced at him, but before she could respond, one of the portraits swayed, stirring in the stillness. It was a family just like hers, laughing on a bright day, yet there was something off about their smiles. They felt too wide, too hollow. Tanya felt a chill crawl down her spine. "Jeremy, let us go," she said, heart racing. As she turned, the doors slammed shut behind them with a thunderous bang. "What the?" she gasped, panic flooding her senses. "Mom!" Jeremy shrieked, backing against the wall. Shadows coalesced in the corners of the room, twisting and curling like live things. "Oh God, we need to get out of here." Tanya pressed her palms against the door, but it wouldn't budge, impenetrable as stone. The whispers from earlier returned, louder now, wrapping around them like barbed vines. "Embrace the truth." They chanted, echoing through the room, the very walls seeming to tremble with each syllable. Then she saw a distant figure emerging from the gloom, shapeless yet menacing. "Don't let it near you," Tanya shouted, pulling Jeremy closer. Her heart pounded, fear ignited every instinct she had. This wasn't over, they had merely walked into a deeper trap. The figure reached out, arms extending like tendrils toward them. "What do you want?" Tanya screamed, desperate to shatter the suffocating silence. In that moment, the ground began to shake. The walls reverberated as if responding to her voice, and she felt the air grow thicker, charging with hostility. Loud cracks echoed, the photographs rattled and some fell. Tanya yanked Jeremy into her arms, then the distant howling started. "Run!" she yelled, adrenaline surging as the walls threatened to close in. They darted toward a narrow passage, uncertainty fueling their escape. But as they ran, torn whispers reached their ears, seductive and haunting. Come find us. What awaited them in the darkness ahead? Was this place truly a sanctuary, or had they stumbled deeper into something far more sinister? The narrow passage swallowed them into an oppressive darkness that felt alive, pulsating with unseen energy. Tanya's breath quickened, each inhale laden with the musty stench of mildew and decay. Shadows flickered along the walls, teasing her peripheral vision, but each time she turned her head, nothing remained. "Mom, please, I'm scared," Jeremy whimpered, his tiny voice barely breaking through the eerie silence that enveloped them. "Hold on tight," Tanya whispered, her grip tightening on his hand. She fought the urge to look back, knowing there was nothing behind them but an abyss of horrors. They stumbled down the passage, the sound of their footsteps echoing ominously. The walls pressed in, seemingly shifting and warping, as if the very structure were a living thing intent on consuming them. As they reached a fork, a soft glowing light flickered at the end of one arm of the passage. "Should we go that way?" Jeremy pointed, eyes wide with trepidation. Tanya hesitated. "I don't know. It could be a trap, maybe it's a way out." Jeremy urged, teeth clenched in determination that a rush of wind whipped down the passage, driving a chill through her bones. Tanya looked back, catching a fleeting glimpse of the twisted figure in the shadows. It hadn't moved, but Tanya could feel its gaze pressing upon her like a weight. "They couldn't stay here. Let us check it out," she said finally, pulling him toward the light. As they approached, the light grew brighter, revealing walls lined with more photographs, hundreds of them, stacked and overlapping like a chaotic collage. But these faces were different. Each one was marked with anguish, their eyes darkened, mouths contorted in unheard screams. This wasn't a family's memories, it was a gallery of despair. Tanya recoiled, her stomach tightening. What is this?" "Mom, I don't like this," Jeremy cried, trying to pull her back. But she couldn't easily turn away. A force seemed to draw her in. Suddenly, the glowing light flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the photographs, making them come to life. The cries seemed to echo around them, a cacophony of tortured souls. "Embrace the truth." A voice boomed, deep and resonant, vibrating through her very core. "Mom! We need to leave." Jeremy screamed as he tugged desperately at her arm. Panic surged, they had to escape. But as she turned to run, the light dimmed, revealing a figure standing ominously at the end of the passage. That it was tall, no longer featureless but wearing a long, tattered cloak. A face began to form, twisted and grotesque, a mockery of human features. It grinned wide, showing sharp, glistening teeth, the very embodiment of their worst fears. "Stay with us," it crooned, each syllable dripping with venom. "Run!" Tanya screamed again, pushing Jeremy ahead of her as they darted back toward the fork. But as they skidded to the decision point, the other path was now shrouded in darkness, as if it had been swallowed whole. All hope felt fleeting. The shadows undulated closer, whispering promises of eternal secrets and unending despair. The laughter of children, twisted into something sinister, filled the air. "Mom, I can't." Jeremy gasped, dropping to his knees, fear freezing him in place. Tanya's heart raced. She had to be strong for him. She could hear the figure approaching, its slow footfalls sending ripples of dread through her body. "Don't look back, just follow me," she cried, urgency punctuating her words. They dashed towards the only remaining option, the tight squeeze of the passage pressing in like a vice. But just as they neared the end, it collapsed into darkness again. Embrace the truth. What did the figure want? What would they find if they went deeper into the unknown? The suffocating terror hung thick in the air, and every instinct screamed for them to escape, yet they were compelled to confront whatever horror lay ahead. Tanya pushed forward, heart racing, mind racing. How did this end? There was no clear way out now, just an expansive black void ahead. And with a final breath, the walls trembled as they pulled her into the revealing abyss. What awaited them in the next breathless moment? As the darkness enveloped them, Tanya felt the pressure of 1,000 eyes upon her, not just the sinister gaze of the figure stalking them, but the weight of countless restless souls trapped in this space. With Jeremy clinging tightly to her, she pushed forward into the void, each step a rebellion against the panic gnawing at her insides. "Stay close," she urged, knowing every heartbeat echoed loud in the suffocating silence. She tightened her grip on her son's hand, feeling the warmth of his small palm against her own, a reminder of all she was fighting for. Just then, a flicker of light appeared up ahead, hauntingly familiar. It pulsed like a beacon, drawing her in with a promise of safety, but she was wary. Memories rushed in, gatherings full of laughter, voices once so bright now buried under the weight of what they had lost. No. That's a trap, she whispered fiercely to herself. Don't get lost in their memories. The walls around them groaned, and the shadows tightened their grip. You can't escape what's yours, the figure hissed behind them, its words curling around her like smoke. Run! Tanya shouted, adrenaline surging through her. She pulled Jeremy along, the flickering light growing dimmer as they sprinted. The laughter behind them grew louder, morphing into tortured cries that clawed at her sanity. The other side of the passageway was closing fast, the shadows corralling them toward an inescapable fate. Mom, I can't. Jeremy cried, his small body trembling beside her, fear enveloping him like a shroud. The echo of pain in his voice fueled Tanya's resolve, igniting an inferno of protective rage within her. Listen to me. We're getting out of this. She declared, her heart pounding like a war drum. It ignited a flicker of hope, and she shoved the dread away to zero in on the path ahead. With each step, she could feel the darkness shattering behind them, the pull of the figure weakening with distance. They reached a clearing, a sudden expanse that opened before them like a breath of fresh air breaking the suffocating hush. Shadows hesitated, swirling uncertainly at the threshold. Mom! Jeremy shouted, pointing to something shimmering at the center of the room, a mirror reflecting flickering scenes of light and joy. But as they stepped closer, the images warped, the laughter twisted into cries, the faces gnarled and desperate. Tanya's chest tightened. Could this be the heart of their torment? No. Tanya shouted, turning back, staring into the swirling darkness that had gathered behind them. I want to be a prisoner of this family's pain. In that moment, she turned to the mirror, locking eyes with her own reflection. I remember you. I remember our happiness. You don't get to take that from me. Determination surged in her, and with a defiant roar, she reached forward, wrapping both arms around the mirror, willing it to shatter. This ends now. The glass crackled, fracturing into thousands of pieces. Tanya felt a rush, the light pouring in like sunrise breaking through the darkest night. And then chaos. The shadows recoiled, writhing as the connection between Tanya and the figure disintegrated, unraveling like a frayed string. Mom! Look out! Jeremy screamed, but Tanya held her ground, focused entirely on the shimmering shards reflecting the truth of their family, the memories that had nearly consumed them. Together, Jeremy. We can do this together. She shouted, reaching for her son. They clasped hands, channeling every ounce of love and hope they had into one final push. The shards erupted outward, a wave of light and color blinding, shattering the lingering darkness. In a violent exhale, the shadows screamed a horrible, nightmarish wail that resonated through her bones as they began to dissipate, banished into the depths from which they had sprung. As silence fell, Tanya opened her eyes, breathing heavily. The two of them stood in a tranquil space, wind gently brushing against their skin, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just faced. The gloom had lifted, revealing the familiar outline of their neighborhood bathed in soft, golden light. The house appeared ordinary now, but the weight of its secrets had lifted. We did it, Jeremy whispered, his voice trembling with disbelief, joy breaking through rightfully alongside his fear. Yes, we did, Tanya replied, a wave of warmth washing over her. She sank to her knees, enveloping her son with a fierce embrace. Tears streamed down her face, an overwhelming relief flooding through her. We found our way back. But the final echoes of laughter lingered in her mind, a haunting reminder that the past could still ripple through their lives. We need to tell others, she murmured, standing up and looking back at the house. We need to warn them about what's hidden in the dark. As they walked toward their home, leaving the shadows behind, Tanya knew the battle was over, but the war had merely begun. They would face the truth, together, setting out to illuminate the darkness that lingered in their memories. Mom, Jeremy said softly, glancing up. Are we safe now? She paused, glancing at the horizon, a serene smile emerging. For now, my love. For now. In that moment, they stepped into the light ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with unwavering courage. As new stories of shadows and truths awaited to be unveiled, she felt the weight of the world lift. Sometimes the hardest battles led to the brightest paths. She squeezed Jeremy's small hand, resolute. Let us make sure we don't lose our way again. And just like that, they strode forward, prepared to face tomorrow with the strength of their love guiding them through even the darkest of nights. If you enjoyed this epic conclusion, don't wait another second. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you never miss an exclusive story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more viewers. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories. What do you think will happen next? And if you know friends who need to hear this story, instantly share this video with at least 5 people. This is the moment to show your support and join our community. True fans don't just watch, they engage.